Hello, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond. My name is Taylor, and welcome to Cornucopia, the brand new little indie farming sim that was released in early access on July 31st, 2023. Now, this game does retail for $32.50 Canadian, which I believe is around $30 US or your regional equivalent. For full disclosure, I was gifted a code via Keymailer by the devs Subconscious Games, so thank you to Subconscious Games and thank you to Keymailer. In the light of the fact that I got a code for this game, I will not let that affect my review score or kind of my opinions on it, though I do want to really heavily emphasize this is a game in early access that only came out in early access a few months ago. So a lot of what you see here is not feature complete, could easily be changed or modified by the devs in time for its full release. I do not know what that full release date would be though. So I'm going to kind of break it down how the game breaks it down for the player and start off with character creation. Now the character creator is pretty basic. You know, you have the different colors of hair, the different colors of clothing, a few hairstyle options, no other clothing options outside of, again, color variances, which is fine. They can add more later. Like I said, early access, so I'm willing to forgive a lot of things in light of the fact they can always improve upon it as time goes on. I did want to mention the cute little thing of you can choose, I think it's either a duck or a chicken, or maybe it's like a hen and a rooster. I couldn't quite tell the difference when deciding your character's gender. There's also like a little bald chick thing that you would use to be, as far as I can tell, gender neutral or gender fluid, or just kind of the other binaries or non-binaries that are not male or female. I apologize, I'm not too well versed in the proper terminology. But yeah, you make your character and then suddenly the game throws you in and you're frozen in a block of ice having just been pulled out of the mines. So this is a really confusing start of the game to me, because I understand they want to create a blank slate for the player. They want to create someone that the player can kind of imprint on, put themselves into, and enjoy the story. But I don't know if this being frozen in ice will play a larger role somewhere down the line in the plot, because I only have about an hour and 45 minutes in the game. I will admit, I got overwhelmed. I got so bombarded with everything that I couldn't handle it. And that's coming from a seasoned, like, Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon kind of clone player. You know, I did almost all achievements in Fae Farm. I've got like 60 plus hours in the game right now, which is crazy. I covered, you know, Skystead Ranch. I will be covering soon Coral Island, because that's what I'm playing right now. And this one just felt very directionless and overwhelming, but I'm going to get there at kind of the end of the video. So, again, you're pulled out, frozen in a block of ice, you get taken to another town, where you unthaw, turns out you're healthy, and suddenly it's like, okay, let's drive you back to where we just were, which I don't quite remember the town name at this moment, which is fine. This story setup, again, does not work for me because it's so outlandish. And I don't know where they would go with it in the future, but at least with games like Spirity, with games like Coral Island, Stardew Valley, you were just someone who was either quitting their corporate job to try to get away from it all, or just someone who needed a new start in life, a new beginning. And those are things I could relate to, not necessarily quitting my job, but like I moved halfway across the world to take a new job. You know, I have a new beginning. I had a new beginning. So for me especially, those were very relatable backstories. Heck, even in Fae Farm, you were an adventurer out to seek new lands. Like, there was a purpose behind what you were doing. Whereas this one, you are, for whatever reason, frozen in a block of ice, get unthawed, and immediately goes, yeah, let's take him back to the farm. It's like, what? It's just really confusing for a story setup, but again, I'm sure the devs have their plans for this. Now, before I get into the core of the gameplay, which I'm sure you've seen on screen by now, I do want to talk about what the term Cornucopia means. Because you probably know the image of Cornucopia, and I'll put it up on screen, and you're like, oh yeah, that thing. But I want to read you what Google says is its textbook definition. A horn-shaped container overflowing with fruits and flowers used as a symbol of plenty. Now, I unfortunately think this kind of symbolizes the game all too well. It is overflowing with so much stuff, but it doesn't pace it. It doesn't give it to you at a reasonable rate. You're just kind of given everything right off the bat and told to go. And it's like, it's so directionless outside of a few kind of, go in this direction type quests that I was like, I can't get into this. This is so overwhelming. And again, that's just me as a more, I don't want to say veteran player, but a more well-versed player in these types of games. I can't imagine how someone who is brand new to the genre would take this. They would be absolutely bombarded and overwhelmed by everything. And I don't imagine a lot of them would take that very well. They might just throw their hands up, return the game, and move on to something a little more relaxing. Because that's why I play these games, to be relaxing. And this one just felt really confusing. So, to continue on with the tutorial, you're in the back of the mayor's truck, and then you reach a roadblock. You've got stones, you've got bushes, you've got logs, all the basic things that many farming sim players are used to. And I'm just going to say Stardew Valley players at this point just for the sake of ease. So bear with me, I am not just talking about people who play Stardew Valley, but any game that is based on the Stardew Valley / Harvest Moon kind of gameplay loop. So you get all your tools, your pickaxe, your hoe, your scythe, your axe, everything you're going to need. You cut down everything, but not before being bombarded by this really busy tutorial, which admittedly does convey all the information you need, but in a really busy manner, and it was hard for me to follow. Again, as someone who's really used to these tools, who's used to the concepts of what I have to do. So, that was not a point in the game's favor. Following that, we reach another roadblock where we're introduced to bombs, which I thought was interesting, because normally explosives are something you kind of unlock, you kind of work towards, but no, they're just like, here, have some bombs, blow up these big rocks. It's like, oh, okay. And finally, you arrive on the ranch. Now, this is again, a weird decision by the devs, and I don't, pretend to know what was going through their heads, and I don't want to call out this story for being bad, because I don't think it's bad, and I'm sure it could easily go to some really interesting places. I'm just not a personal fan of how it's paced and how it's set up. Basically, you're given the farm because it's been abandoned by its previous owner, and the mayor and his wife were kind of just looking after it. They were kind of keeping it sort of in check. He would also sneak sodas there because his wife hated him drinking them. And he's like, you can live here, you can work the fields and do all this stuff. Just keep a couple sodas for me. Which, I mean, this man has supported us to no end and is fantastic, but why? There's genuinely no reason. There's no familial connection. There's no history with the town for us to be carrying on. We're just some weird person who was frozen in a cave and then given this ranch. It just feels very disjointed. It feels very disconnected and doesn't make me personally invested in the in the townsfolk or in my character as a whole. He also leaves his dog, which is really weird. And he's like, oh, yeah, just keep the dog for now. Feed him occasionally. He'll be fine. Then you are tasked with fixing up the shipping bin. So, that first day, all I did was kind of, mine, cut some logs, do some stuff, and then I went to bed. But not before realizing that if I jumped, which is also weird that I could jump, I kind of forgot to mention that earlier. I don't know why you would need to jump in this game, and I do worry there are puzzle platforming sections. I'm not saying there are, but it is my concern that they would be put in, because this is definitely not the type of graphical style or way that I would want to play a puzzle platformer or something with puzzle platforming elements. But anyway, you can jump, and then if you kind of jump onto the bed, you can just jump on the bed automatically. You'll see me jumping on screen. I'm not pressing the spacebar. I'm not doing anything. That is just my character jumping on the bed, which I thought was a cute little touch. Anyway, I went to bed. I got up the next day. I fixed the shipping bin. I built some of the basic stuff like a furnace, sawmill, tumbler, not that tumbler, one that processes gems and things, as well as a compost bin. And it was all very cute, but all, again, very almost overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time, because it was a lot to take in all at once without, again, a proper explanation, just one of those big tutorials popping up in your face, being like, hey, this is everything it does. And I will say, I think what frustrates me more is not being able to access those tutorials at a later time. I would love the option to just pull up a list of the tutorials or a list of the controls and be like, okay, what does this do again? Just a quick reminder for myself so that I knew what I was getting into and I knew how to properly use all the equipment on my farm. Anyway, we fix up the shipping bin, we get that stuff, we meet Stanley, the mailman, seems lovely, and then I go over to the shed. I'm like, okay, I have a shed, that's weird. Then I look at the shed, and it's empty, obviously, but I look at how many slots it has, and I'm just like, why are there this many slots? Now, I will say I did not unlock any crafting recipes where that would enable me to make chests or storage containers, so this is probably meant to be like the primary storage hub for right now, but it is intimidating. It is ridiculously large, and I was filling up my inventory so quickly. And it was just a hassle to try to take things from my inventory and put them into the shed until I realized I have to open up my bag menu, not the shed menu, but my bag menu, standing in front of the shed, and then press Q, and that's like their kind of quick way of doing it. Or to ascend a stack, I have to press Z, which were just kind of weird controls in my opinion, but the whole thing feels early access, and that's fine. It is early access. It's only a few months old. I really hope to see this game improve over the following months, over the following years, to be in a state where I could properly enjoy it. Anyway, so after you go look at your massive shed, I cleared off more of my farm, and then I went to bed again, because I was like, okay, my objective is right now to kind of clear up the farm, plant some stuff, and grow some stuff. All right, simple, right? So I do that, I plant some things, go through a whole planting tutorial. Then I wake up one day and my character's like, hey, I should check out the chicken coop. Like, huh? There's a chicken coop? So I walked to the left, I entered a building and was like, oh, I have a chicken coop. And suddenly the old man and his wife are there and they've given me a chick. And it's like, okay, I now have a chick that I didn't ask for and don't know how to feed. Great. Another tutorial pops up. On instinct, I kind of glanced it, closed it, and realized I don't know how to feed this thing. We'll find out later that it goes down by 1 hunger every day out of 3, and you can feed it dog food. Don't ask me why, it just eats it. And the interesting thing about this chick is, or any kind of animal companion that you have, when you start mining, or logging, or foraging, or doing whatever, this companion will accompany you. This companion will do things with you. So if I hit a rock with a pickaxe once, the chick will go over there and peck at it until the rock, is done, until it's gone, until I get the stone from it, or cutting down a tree, or whatever. And even if I'm still attacking it, the chick will come over and will assist me, which I thought was kind of cool. The chick also had its own energy bar and stats, which can improve as it does its actions, which I was like, okay, this is an interesting idea. Apparently they even help in combat, and I was kind of confused. I was like, well, are these not for, animal products, like for eggs and things? Are these meant to be more of like a companion in an RPG? So it was just a really confusing touch there, which I didn't mind, but it felt very out of place for what was supposed to be like the Stardew Valley Harvest Moon farming sim. Following that, I had been collecting card packs and opening them, not realizing what they'd do. I could see them like popping up, the message popping up saying, hey, you got this card, or you got this card. I had no idea what they were until I finally opened one, and I didn't remember how I opened it. And I realized, oh, a lot of these are scratch cards. So at first I was manually going up and down, scratching them all to see what rewards I would get. But then I realized there's an auto button, and I just clicked the auto button. I'm like, okay. And it didn't even fully scratch some of the squares sometimes. I was really confused. But as far as I can tell, these card packs are just a way of giving the player free resources, which is an interesting idea, though I can see being really unbalanced, especially if you get lucky or unlucky. And speaking of unbalanced, this game, as I mentioned many times, is early access. Now, they've recently added a level up mechanic where when your skill levels up, you get to choose between 3 random bonuses. Now, these bonuses can take the form of gems, of tree saplings, of vegetables, of temporary stat buffs, and this is insane to me because I leveled up so many different skills, got so many different things, and so many different cards as a result that I was just, like, again, overwhelmed is the only word I can think of. It's just so much all the time, and it doesn't want to let you just kind of rest and relax. It's like, hey, look at this thing, hey, look at this thing, hey, look at this thing. It's just explosion after explosion of stuff. And it's like, game, I want to enjoy this. Like, just calm down for a minute. And I'm sure that was not the developers' intentions. They just want to create a rewarding and fulfilling experience, but I think they went a little too far in trying to keep the player consistently engaged. Like, you're better off with a good core gameplay loop that's enjoyable than throwing all this additional stuff at me every time I level up, or giving me a gambling mechanic in the form of the cards. Like, I think the game is focused too much on these side mechanics, not enough on the main mechanic. Kind of a similar criticism that I had to Spirity, though in a very different sense, because Spirity had a really fantastic main mechanic, but then it had underdeveloped side mechanics. This one, I don't want to say is the opposite, because I didn't have too much experience with all of its primary mechanics, but it definitely felt like, the farming was not the main focus in some regards. At the same time, it felt like it was absolutely the main focus when we're going to get into the specifics. You know what, let's do it now. We're still on the farm. Apparently, different types of soil, clay, soft soil, sand, silt, all have different concentrations of phosphate, nitrogen, and I can't remember the last chemical. But basically, different types of plants will grow better or worse depending on the balance of these three chemicals. Now, this is very true. I used to work at a garden center. I understand the basic mechanics behind the biology and, why certain plants would do better in certain types of soil. But I think it's too much to throw at the player in the beginning. Give me an introduction to what these things are, what types of plants or fruits or vegetables might grow better in certain types of soils, and how I could maybe change or alter the chemical construct of different types of soils. But it's just like, oh, here it is, quick tutorial explaining it. Okay, plant, whatever's appropriate. It's like, well, how do I know? And admittedly, everything does give you like its desired requirements, like this is what it wants to do. You can plant it anywhere. It'll just be a lot less effective and probably a lot lower quality if you plant it in soil that isn't designed for that type of vegetable or that type of fruit. So it's a lot, again, to throw at the player. And we haven't even left the farm yet. Like, this is all at the farm, which is insane to me. But I finally gathered the courage to leave the farm and decided to try to venture into town, where a lot happened. There was cutscene after cutscene, miscellaneous NPCs to talk to, which had some okay dialogue, nothing too crazy. And they are working on facial portraits and animations. So they recently released a V2. I don't know if I was using the V2 or the V1 at the time. I'm imagining V2 because I didn't opt into V1. But the buildings were, semi-noticeable, like semi-distinct from one another. The bigger problem I had was navigating the map. Now, I haven't mentioned this, but obviously this is a 2.5D game, meaning you are more of a two-dimensional character within a three-dimensional space, though you look at it from a two-dimensional perspective. I know that's a lot of mumbo-jumbo that I just spouted there, but basically, you can move left and right, but you can also move towards the screen or away from the screen, though again, your character's still that 2.5D sprite. Kind of like Octopath Traveler, but I admit I've never played that game. I've only seen it on YouTube, so I don't want to say it's exactly the same, because it's absolutely not. But this also made navigation, to me at the very least, feel really weird, because I'm not used to this style of game. And when I wanted to go into, say, the upper part of town, I had to walk into a wall with a bunch of sparklies, and that was apparently, me going up, which confused the hell out of me. And I was like, okay, I understand, like, from a visual standpoint, I understand that this is how I change maps, but I feel like instead of just having a wall and like a section cut into the wall, have stairs. Have another visual indicator for the player to say, okay, you are changing an elevation, you'll be changing the map. And I can see those stairs from distance, go, okay, I would be changing elevation. I would be changing the part of the map that I am in. Totally fine. I walked into the library after getting a note from the librarian, Brianna, to come say hi. There was a weird cutscene where this guy goes and basically says, hey, I have feelings for you. And she goes, oh, okay, I don't know what to do with this. I think I have feelings for you too. And she's very awkward. And she asks if they can just kind of still remain friends because she isn't sure how to respond to him. I was like, okay, fine. We kind of get a feel for these characters' personalities a little bit. But then I get a mission to go up to the second floor to look for something. So I go up to the second floor. And there's Brianna. So I click on her character to kind of, interact, talk to her. But then there's this cutscene of her reading all these books of how to make love, how to flirt, how to do all these things. And it's like, what am I watching? Why am I watching this? She goes from like super shy and confused to reading arguably more and more, or rather steamier and steamier books as to, how to engage in certain things that I will not name here on YouTube. And it's like, I thought this was a farming sim. What is going on? Now don't get me wrong, I totally appreciate the characterization of someone who is genuinely trying to make a connection with another person, even if they're not going about it in what I would say is a traditional way. They're reading books on how to do certain things, but it really felt like they were moving a little fast. And I mean, I'm not one to judge, I don't know Brianna's personality, but it felt, again, out of place. It's all these ideas being thrown at you, but not being given time to breathe, not being given time to solidify themselves. It's just like this thing, and then this thing, this thing, this thing. It's too much. And I'm going to say that time and time again until you're sick of it, but it is way too much. I walked through town more, noticed this girl was following me. When I got to the far right of the map, she was like, oh, hey, I'm stuck in this bridge. Can you help me? You help her out. She's like, okay, meet me behind the granary after, whatever, after dark. So I was like, okay, sure, whatever, quest. And I go behind the granary up to the second level and realize, oh, this is not where I'm supposed to be. So I have to come down back to the old map I was on, go up the stairs to the second level of the granary, where she drops a box on my head, and then I wake up in the secret hideout, where she starts spouting this stuff of, there's something in the mine, something to do with a spider, and I need certain gems to defeat the spider, and therefore I need to befriend 3 characters to get their gems so I can go and defeat the spider in the caves. And it's like, oh, okay, this is a lot to take in. So then I get 3 quests to retrieve the gems from the particular people, and then she drops a box on my head again, knocking me out again, and takes me out of the secret hideout. Also that I wouldn't know where the secret hideout was. And this was the point where I tapped out, where I said, okay, enough is enough. Like, this is insane. I was getting overwhelmed with all of this stuff because I had no idea what direction to go in. I had quests to grow crops, I had quests to befriend people, I had quests to go into the mines, which on the surface sounds exactly like Stardew. On the surface sounds exactly like Coral Island, Fae Farm, any of the other games that I've named in this video. The problem for me is that those games took it slowly, in the beginning at the very least, and they ramped up. They understood the pacing that they were going for, and they were like, okay, we want you to start small. Ship 15 of this small thing and expand. Reinvest that money, expand a little more. Okay, maybe a little more. Okay, you're through your first couple months. We think you're ready for this game. Go out there. And it's like, oh yeah, the mines have opened up after a few days. Great. Whereas Cornucopia is, hey, this is open, that's open, that over there is open. Oh yeah, that over there is open. It's like, holy crap. Slow down, game. Let me breathe. Let me get to grips with your mechanics. Let me get to grips with what makes you unique. And let me enjoy it. Then you can take me by the hand. You can lead me somewhere new. Let me enjoy that. Rinse and repeat. Okay? Now, this is all without getting into what is, in my opinion, the most overwhelming and intimidating aspect of this game. What I'm about to show you is me opening up my collections book. There are hundreds, and I do mean hundreds, if not totaling more than 2,000 separate collectibles between the fish, the gems, the vegetables, the cooking dishes, everything. Now, I don't know if all of this is in the game. I would be astonished if it was, but this is clearly where the devs want to go, and it is far too much of a collectathon, of a grind, for me to want to engage with it. If you had, at most, 200 between, the vegetables, the fruits, the fish, the creatures, all of that, that's fine. 200 is still a lot, and still a fair amount of time. Not 2,000 plus, on top of 49 separate characters. It's all too much, game. I understand that these devs are ambitious, and I respect their ambition. I think that's fantastic. But I think they've taken it too far, too quickly. Give me a small handful of NPCs. Give me a small handful to do before giving me just a bit more, and then a bit more, and then a bit more, and then the rest. Lead me into it slowly. But no, not Cornucopia, at least in its current state. It throws you headfirst into the deepest part of an oceanic-sized pool and says, swim. Now, I will admit, I did not go into the mines. Like I said, that was when I tapped out. So I do not know all of its core mechanics, though I would imagine it is the basic principle of get new gems, improve your tools, find collectibles, fish, fight monsters, potentially catch insects, I wasn't 100% sure, grow your farm, put some furniture on your farm, put some furniture in your place, get married, have kids, all the basic things you would do in a farming sim. The problem is that just gets buried. Not by new mechanics, not by other things, but by too much of everything I just listed. Like, it's not, the whole wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle. The problem is it's about the width of an average swimming pool, but it's 10 times the depth. There's just too much to go down into for you to really feel like you can have a grasp over the whole thing, which some people are going to love. Some people are going to say, this game is going to last me for 100 plus hours, 200 hours, 300 hours, what have you, before I even get all the collectibles. And for me, that's too much. That is not okay, in my opinion. I want to stress that is just for me. Okay? Now, the other thing that is not for me personally is this graphic style. It looks super cute. I appreciate what they're going for with it. It is not for me. I was not a fan of movement. You can change the camera angle between kind of straight on or way up high. You can pull out, pull in. You can control the camera how you want to. There was never an angle for me that felt right. There was never an angle for me that felt good. Now that is, again, just an absolutely personal problem. If you like this type of game, in terms of its camera angle, in terms of aesthetic, go for it. But if I had to wrap up my final thoughts, what I would say to the devs is, do not take out anything from this game in the beginning. Move it away from the player. Give the player a smaller area to work with. Give the player smaller quest objectives that are easier for them to meet. Like the vegetable ones, like grow 5 vegetables, that's good. It's when you get into, hey, fight the spider in the caves, but first you have to friend 3 people to get their gems, and then you can fight the spider. It's like, whoa, what the hell are you talking about? Right? Start them off slowly. Get them used to the mechanics they're going to be using on the farm. Then be like, hey, befriend this NPC because they have a special item you're going to need to get into the caves in the first place. Great, you've started them off slow. They get used to how the socializing mechanic works in this game. And then it's like, okay, befriend these other groups of people who are all kind of interconnected with each other. So they're all in relatively the same place. They're easy to access. And you understand or begin to understand their relationships with one another and with the town as a whole. Great, you've established a smaller group for me to care about and why I should care about them. And then build on it from there, and there, and there, and finally be like, hey, you've got a basic idea of everything, now go out and enjoy. I just think this game needs to pace it out a little better and spread the love. The game feels like it's so scared to lose players that it feels it has to throw everything at them right off the bat in hopes that they'll stay. But this is like saying I love you on a first date. You don't want them to leave so badly, so desperately, that you do what you feel you have to. You meet what you feel is their ultimate goal right away in hopes that you keep them. But all it does is scare them away. All it does is say, this is too much for me, I'm out. And I feel like that's what happened with Cornucopia. They said I love you way too early. So with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, thank you so much for being here. I understand this was a long and rambling one, but I had a lot to say because this game had a lot to say to me. Now, I want to stress one more time that I was given a code by Subconscious Games through Keymailer, so thank you to Keymailer and Subconscious Games one more time. I evidently have not let that affect my review, though I wanted to try to be a little lighter on it, given that it's early access. And I think this game has a lot of potential if they choose to realize it. This is an I can fix it sort of situation, or I can fix them sort of situation. A lot of work has to happen first. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did you like the game play footage? Did you like the game's play footage? Did you not like the gameplay footage? Would you consider picking up Cornucopia? Let me know the answers to all that and much, much more in the comments down below. and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!